And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. The Huffington Post is reporting that GOP frontrunner Donald Trump has informed a number of top Republican Party leaders that he will not run as a third-party candidate. While senior Trump aide Michael Cohen would not officially confirm that the billionaire candidate is taking an independent run off the table, he did say that Mr. Trump never had any intention of running as anything other than a Republican. Most observers agree that confirming his loyalty to the GOP would likely help Donald Trump with conservative voters and silence those who have suggested that Trump's candidacy may be designed to actually aid the Democrats. All right, Rick, what do you make of this latest move?
What do I make of it? Well, first of all, I want to hear more. That one report is probably not enough to satisfy me. I would have thought it'd be bigger news if he really was announcing that he's not going to run as a third party. If he is actually saying that, then I think it is going to help him a great deal. And I think that he's believing that he's actually going to win the Republican nomination. And
I agree with you.
Who am I to say otherwise?
He's at secretariat proportions at this point in terms of the polls that I'm seeing, like 30-point lead. So even if this implosion that appears to be never coming happens, he may still be far enough ahead where he doesn't lose anyway.
I fully believe that he thinks he's going to be the nominee at this stage. He also cites the Drudge Report poll, the Time Magazine online poll, as real polls. He genuinely believes that they're real polls when they're just online surveys. So I think he really thinks that he's in the pole position now, and he is. But polls are what they are. There was some news actually about this pledge to not run third party. He was interviewed by Mark Halperin, John Heilman, just recently within the last hour, and he said, is this for real? And is there anything that can be enforced? And he said, no, this isn't really enforceable. So he's just kind of, he's sort of he's a very unprincipled guy, and he's embracing his lack of principle. He says, there's nothing to stop me if I want to. But I don't think he thinks he has to. He thinks he's going to be the nominee.
Jonathan, any last thoughts on that?
Look, I'm a rebel at heart, and I just love the fact that Donald Trump has the status quo system in a headlock right now, and they don't know what to do.
That's perfect analysis.
It's fun.
No one knows what to do with it.
I'm not sure that qualifies you to run the free world, but it is entertaining.
But it is making changes to these two parties that I think have serious problems.
But it actually isn't. I wish it were. You know how I feel about that.
If he gets elected,
I'd be all for it if it were making changes to these two parties. I couldn't agree more.
I think it's making some major waves.
What's it doing? It's making with the voting public, but what is it doing that changes our right two parties?
That is yet to see. You actually said something about foreign policy last time I was on this show, that it may take several years to see a change. I think that it's the same thing with what Trump is doing.
Maybe.
I think it's changing the fact that phony politicians need not apply. Homogenized sound bites are obsolete. This will be used as a guide, maybe not to the extent that Trump uses it, but in terms of candor and being authentic, people will say, that's what people are looking for.
Are you seeing any other candidates, aside from maybe Bernie, who started out that way too, who are now being more authentic and less soundbitey?
They're trying to, but we already know what they are.
The majority of people that have been in government that are running have been in for 20 years. Right. Like Joe Biden, 30 years. He's not going to change into a homemade cookie.
Joe Biden hasn't said a word though yet.
Yeah, but he's not going to change into a homemade cookie.
What about Scott Walker? He hasn't been there for 20 or 30 years, and he can't even get his soundbite straight.
Well, but he's been a politician since he graduated high school.
That's true. Turning our attention to last night's Trump press conference. Ooh, media news. I love this stuff. In Iowa, the candidate had just called upon a reporter in attendance when Univision anchor, that's a reporter, not an opinion guy, Jorge Ramos, attempted to pursue his own questions to the candidate despite not even being called upon. After refusing to be silent until being called upon, Ramos was escorted out of the presser.
Who's next? Yeah, please. Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million people. You cannot build a 1900 wall. You cannot deny citizenship to children in this.
Sit down, please. You weren't called.
I'm a reporter and I have don't touch me, sir. Don't touch me.
Go.
You cannot touch me. I have the right to ask a question. I have the right to ask a question.
Yes, go ahead. Hi, Chip. Yes.
So what we saw there was Jorge Ramos was no longer a reporter, he was a protester. And you know what happens to protesters at press conferences like this? You get escorted out.
For people who couldn't hear the whole thing, the reason you're saying that was he wasn't asking questions. He was kind of making a speech.
Right, he was an advocate.
I have to disagree. When you're the president, you can call on members of the press. When you're in a campaign scrum, you get yelled at questions, and you have to deal with that. And he dealt with that very poorly. He deported him. He summarily
But
deported
he let him back in, just like the Trump immigration policy. Escorted him out, letting him back in.
one.
Here's what I know. Hillary ropes off reporters, right? Obama actually, the President Obama actually spies on them, like James Rosen, and Trump simply throws them out. Anyway, just a reminder for you all, be sure to tune in to the Hardline with Ed Berliner tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. Catch his exclusive interview with Ted Cruz. And you can get a copy of Ted Cruz's best-selling book, A Time for Truth, for free with this special offer. Just go to newsmax.com/Ted Cruz. More Daily Wrap in a moment.